To get the parts for Baruuk, you have to come and see Little Duck here, and no spoilers because I'm not going there. And you get it from leveling up to Agent, and then you can get the parts to actually build him. His blueprint is in here, it's going to cost you 5,000 reputation for that. Then we have another 5, 5, 5, so in total 20,000 standing to get the parts. And to actually build them, it uses gems and alloys as well as the toroids things from the actual Orb Valis itself, which is kind of nice. As well as you can see, that's a fish part, more alloys. Same for the, is this the systems? Yes. This uses fish parts and more gems. Kind of glad I actually built those gems so it doesn't come up red. Unlike some of the new amps, which obviously use some of the resources that drop from taking on the Prophet Taker, which sadly you will have to do before you can level this up to the next level. Because, well, like me, you'll kind of be stuck here where you haven't got enough things to sacrifice to go to the next level to be able to actually build him. But he does look insanely interesting and very useful. One of the reasons I think he could be a promising frame comes down to silly little things, like he has 2 Ds already in there. Yes, you may have to form possibly 2 Vs and a dash on here. Depending how you build him, get rid of one of the Ds as well. Swap those out for something else. He has a dash in his elixir slot. He has a sprint speed of 1.2 and an armor of 150, so he's nicely armored, not heavily, just nicely armored, and has a quick sprint speed. His passive is the restraint meter in the bottom right, and you will need to try and drain this because that is what most of his abilities do, and you cannot even activate his 4th ability while that is even there. His first ability, Elude, is a weird one. It basically makes you do that weird thing that the Flash can do, but notice the restraint meter. You can actually lower the restraint meter with this fairly quickly, but it only works from the front unless you have or increase the ability strength to include the back. You can kind of see the shots that were going through there until they all decided to run away. Come on, shoot. See, they go through you. You're kind of going through them, but if I turn my back on him, you can see I'm now taking damage. Or I could just use his second ability. I actually traded him for somebody else that kind of does the same thing. As you can see there, it has started to drain the restraint. But any enemy that you have line of sight on, and I actually had line of sight of every single one of them. Not a single one was left moving. That's unlucky for me. But it puts them to sleep for a short period of time. This is actually great, and I have heard a lot of people talking about how useful this is and how overkill it can be, but you really need line of sight on this, and nope. Oh, put them back to sleep. I just wanted to quickly check on the finishers there. Yeah, you can easily recast it, but it sends them to sleep slowly, as you could see. So, yeah, they will still continue shooting at you, but you cannot... Oh, you can finish them off. Obviously, hitting them will wake them back up. I'm not trying to perform finishers, if you don't mind. So by doing that, I just woke up every single one. It works like every other sleeping ability does. I just like the fact that that little animation that he does when you cast the ability... Okay, it is affecting the ones that are now starting to wake up. Ooh, that was lucky. This little animation, it does look like it has a range to about here, but you can see how far it actually went, and yet again, these are still all within the range of it, so everybody sleeps. Shh, they're sleeping now. It, of course, also drains your restraint. The third one are daggers. They are defensive, and before I go down there, they are supposed to max at 90%. You can have, I do believe it's either 9 or 8 actual daggers, but they will also seek out enemies and it will disarm them depending on the range, so you really need to keep an eye on how many daggers you have because when you get near enemies, they're obviously going to start running away and disarming enemies. But it does actually do exactly what you think it does, and it disarms the enemies. It takes the gun off them. This also drains your restraint. This is the pacifist frame. Most of his abilities are based more on, yeah, all gone again. I'm just going to keep doing this till none of you can actually shoot at me anymore. But you do lose the damage restraint from every dagger that you end up using, and you need to keep them to keep the damage that you take to a minimum. Why are you all the way over here with your melee weapon? Is that everybody disarmed? 9 daggers. 8, 7, 6, 5. Yeah, this is why I'm saying you really need to keep an eye on these, because they will go after enemies. You can end up with a lot more of these, depending of course on your power's ability strength. I have 20, but I would never run him like this simply because I'm sacrificing duration and range, which are kind of useful for the rest of his abilities. Probably easier to just actually reset it and come back in, because you can see the kind of tearing through me now, which is much more efficient, and them shooting from the side are actually starting to do damage. No, that's because I'm getting shot in the butt. His fourth ability is where things get weird. The Serene Storm basically uses his restraint meter to deal more damage using his exalted fists that work kind of like the fist melee does, but it shoots out these weird waves that can have some very weird effects to them. The vacuum there, that's just simply coming from if you hold block and ground pound at the same time, it causes a vacuum that pulls enemies in. Why are you all disarmed? Did this... Okay, it also disarms the enemies, which is something I'd never noticed it doing before and do not even have notes on. If you slide into them, it will levitate. The uppercut is actually pretty cool. I like that a lot, actually. This is where... It wasn't until I got to this point I finally saw this frame and thought, ah, okay, this is where he could get really good, because, okay, it's not currently dealing a lot of damage, because I do believe that the setup I have on his actual exalted weapon at the minute is kind of very messed up. I actually don't think I have any mods in it at all, but that is a still, I love this. The vacuum, the ability to actually suck them into the air. Oh, there is just, I mean, okay, yes, the whole exalted blade and shooting off the melee side of it is pretty good, because the effect is pretty nice. And you can channel it, which of course means a little bit more damage. Now realizing there's no enemies here. Go away. His normal ground pound, of course, shoots enemies away, but if it didn't do that, I would have been sorely disappointed. Being classed as, or what did it say? Beware the fury of the truly patient. Pushed beyond restraint, a reluctant master unleashes the storm within. Yeah, Serene Storm is actually really useful with the ability to knock people into the air, pull them together, using the vacuum on the ground pound block thing, or push them away if you do the ground pound without blocking. I would agree, that is definitely a really hectic storm. Desolate Hands, his third ability with the daggers. I like the incoming damage reduction, not block, so it only maxes at like 90%. But you also have to keep an eye on them, because once the daggers leave you, obviously the incoming damage reduction goes with them, so they're not straight up damage reduction. Being able to put them to sleep as well with his second ability, Lull, really useful. And even down to Elude, that makes him basically evade all incoming damage. The only downside to him I found was with his first ability. I mean, major downside, not the little bits. The not having the full 360 I could understand. But having to have that high an ability strength, I think it was about 200, to get the full 360 effect means the only real way to build him would mean you're going to have to format at least, you need a dash for the pranged flow, you're probably going to need 2 Vs because you're going to want at least 1 for transient fortitude, even maybe 1 for blind rage. Duration's kind of important because transient fortitude takes that away, so unless you want to run around with a 73% duration, you need prime continuity in there that will counter it with the 128 that it will end up with, which is not great power duration, by the way. Honestly, if you can get around where his parts are actually located and getting in there to actually get them, yeah, he's actually a nice rounded frame, eluding incoming damage, Lull putting them to sleep, Desolate Hands, those daggers, as long as you keep track of them, they work really well with the ability to disarm enemies and lower incoming damage, and Serene Storm having the vacuum ability, the knocking them away ability, the levitating them ability. He is a really good, well-rounded frame where all of his abilities mesh together really well, and honestly I kind of regret putting him away to work on Mesa, because I thought Mesa was better than him until I came back and had a bit more of a play and kind of went, I've been using him completely wrong for the whole day I used him, no, 2 days before I got Mesa and started using her. Yeah, I really regret that. He is a way better frame than I expected him to be. But anyway, we'll leave this off here for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch yous next time.